a firm has a typical U-shaped cost function like this. Where marginal cost cuts through the minimum point of average cost and the average variable cost. Alright, our task here is we want to find out how many units output the firm produced. Again, implicitly, we want to assume that the firms operate in the perfectly competitive markets. So firms are faced with market price. So let's suppose is P. So this level. So that's the market price. Is this many? Suppose. And the firms can sell as many units of output at the market price as they want. So if I'm the firms, I sell one more unit of the output to the market in the market, then the extra dollar I get is P. So this P price, market price, is also the marginal revenue curve that I'm faced with. And it is also the demand curve for firm's demand curve that I'm faced with. Okay, we know that firms follow MI equal to MC. In order to maximize its profit, always do, or the best firms can do is choosing the quantity such that MI equal to MC. So we have MI curve here, we have MC curve here, which means this point. Let me call this point A. Okay, this point A means that, okay, the quantity go from A of this, say, QO, okay, maybe 100, maybe 200. And that's the best firms can do when faced with a market price of P. Right, now the issue here is that where's my, look at the diagram here, where's my profit? Where's my total revenue? Where's my total cost? So we know that profit is total revenue, take away total costs. So let's find the total revenue first. So the firms is willing to produce QO units of output. Each unit just sell at the price of P. So the total revenue will be equal to OP times OP times O times QO is equal to P times QO, and is actually the area of these rectangles O QO A P. Okay, this area. That's the total revenue. Total cost. To find the total cost, let's find the average cost first. So go from quantity up to the average cost curve, read out the average cost. Let me label this point C. So total cost is equal to average cost times the quantity QO. So which is so on average each unit costs you OC C dollars to produce. Altogether they are QO units. So the total cost is C times OC times QO. So it's the area of this rectangle. O, Q, O, let me call this point B, B, C. Okay. And the profit is the difference between them. So profit is total revenue take away total cost is this rectangle P A B C. That's the difference. Okay. So now what I want to do is now let me be the god in the market. Let me say I'm gonna say reduce the price now. So on our current diagrams, this firm is making positive economic profit. We can observe this point. Now let me be the god here. Let me say, okay, I'm going to decrease the price. Okay, so let me reproduce the diagrams on the right hand side. And let's say rather than price is the same as before, I'm going to decrease to this. So price decrease. And again, this is my MR curve. Okay, so let me call it P1. And again, the best firm can do here is follow the MR equal to MC, which is the intersection point of MR equal to MC. So this point, let me call this point D. That means a quantity of Q1, and total revenue is OP1 D Q1. And let's look at the total cost. To get the total cost, let's find out the average cost first. So go from Q1 up to the average cost curve, read down the average cost. Let's call this C1. And now we can see that the total cost is OC1, and let me call this E. Okay, there's a point here, E. So D here, E here. Okay. So the total cost is OC1 EQ1. And we can see that now because the price dropped from P to P1, this firm is making economic loss. Okay, the total cost is higher than the total revenue. Now here comes the questions. Should the firms shut down? So here, profit is negative. Okay, should the firm shut down? To answer this question, let's see whether my revenue can cover my variable cost or not. So in making this decision, the fixed cost, you won't worry about it because you already paid it. It's sunk. Okay. So you want to ignore this part. So let's compare the total revenue with variable costs. Okay. So we already know the total revenue is the area, the rectangle of OQ1DP1. So where's the variable cost? To find the variable cost, let's find the average variable cost first. So go from quantity up to the average variable cost curve. Read out the average variable cost. That's this many. And we can see that in my drawing here, total revenue is bigger than variable cost. So despite this firm is making economic loss, it will hang on to it. The situation is not good, but not as bad as to shut down in the short run. Okay, and this is because in the short run, fixed cost is the firm's already paid, it becomes sunk, so it doesn't matter in making these decisions. All right, that's the second graph. Okay, let me keep pushing down the price. So I'm going to draw a third one. And the costs are all the same. And marginal cost. Okay, now I'm going to drive down the price to be very low. That's P2. And this is also a mark curve. And first with P2, the best the firm can do is still follow MI equal to MC, which means producing at the intersection point here. Let me call this F. That means a quantity of Q2. And total revenue here, total revenue is equal to the rectangle of O P2 F Q2. Okay, and clearly this firm is making economic loss, negative profit. Now still we want to find out, should this firm shut down or not? Again, we compare total revenue with variable cost. And to get variable cost, we look at the average variable cost first. So we go from quantity up to the variable cost, average variable cost, read out the average variable cost. And we see that now the total revenue is less than variable cost. So in these situations, this is too bad. So the firms is actually better off just shut down. Okay, the total revenue cannot cover the variable costs. Okay, so we have these three diagrams, and I hope you appreciate that. Okay, the firm supply curve is actually the marginal cost curve above the minimum level average cost curve. This is what we call a shutdown point. Shutdown point. In the short run is this. Okay. In the long run is actually this. Is also the marginal cost curve, but it's above this point, the minimum point average cost curve, because in the long run you can liquidate everything. Okay. So that's the firm supply curve. Is actually marginal cost curve above the shutdown point in the short run, or above the minimum average cost curve in the long run. And the market supply curve is the sum of each individual firm's supply curve. And you should now also hopefully convinced that this market supply curve will also be upward sloping, because all the individual firms supply curve is upward sloping.